Hello, and welcome to the Boskalis team. You are about to begin part 1 of a 5-part video induction series for our LNG Canada contracted scope of work. This series will include narration and text you will need to read on the screen, so paying attention is very important. At the end of the video series, there will be a knowledge test to confirm you caught key information provided. For now, grab a coffee, plug those headphones in, get comfortable and stay focused. We will start with the JFJV Prime Contractor orientation, before we begin with our company induction. This will give you some of the key safety points to adhere to while working on the project. JFJV is a joint venture partnership between Japan Gas Company, whose involvement in LNG projects account for about 30% of global production, and Fluor is an engineering, procurement, and contracts management company, who builds and maintains projects on 6 continents. As you can see, the LNG Canada project is a large, complex and ambitious project. It represents the single largest private investment in Canada ever. As a significant global source of greener energy, it will bring economic prosperity to northern British Columbia, and has already built solid relationships and friendships that will last generations. But first, it needs to be built, safely, in an environmentally conscious, and respectful manner. Work sites across Canada must adhere, at minimum, to the provincial legislation where the work is being performed. For this project, we must follow the Workers' Compensation Act, and the Occupational Health and Safety Regulation of British Columbia. This important legislation sets out the legal requirements that must be followed by all persons when operating, or working in British Columbia. If these requirements are not followed, WorkSafe BC can choose from a variety of enforcement tools, including stop work orders, and administrative penalties and fines. Work sites are monitored and legislation is enforced by WorkSafe BC officers across the province. For our scope of work, we will also be required to adhere to Canadian federal legislation, mainly overseen by Transport Canada. This legislation governs much of what our vessels and barges can do while working in Canadian navigable waters, and what activities are restricted. Canadian legislation is very prescriptive, and has stiff penalties. As a manager, vessel master, barge master, supervisor or worker, you must be careful when using the operating practices you have learned from a different province, country or other part of the world while operating in Canadian waters. The consequences can be severe. The LNG Canada project has also developed a set of construction work policies and procedures, also called CWPP, which meet or exceed the provincial requirements. These were developed using the legislation as the basis, added industry best practices, and incorporated lessons learned from incidents and near-miss events from a wide number of previous projects. On this project, CWPPs are critical documents to adhere to. Finally, we have our own Boskalis way of work, which includes our safety, construction, and quality management systems to name a few. It is a lot of information and requirements, so if you are ever unsure about something, or don't know, ask. If it takes 30 minutes to find the right information to safely progress the work, take that time. We would rather that, than any person being injured, harm to the environment, damages to our equipment, tarnishing the reputation of the project, LNG Canada or our own, or even the work activities being stopped from an incident occurring or regulatory officer intervening. What do you think would be the right choice? Taking the time needed to make the right decision, or facing the consequences afterwards? Good, let us do the right thing and follow the rules and requirements. Let's talk about some of the JFJV requirements for site access and traveling through the project site. Once you have completed induction, you will need to obtain a site photo identification card from JFJV. This is used to permit access to the project site, and our work areas. It must be kept with you at all times. In the Terminal B work areas, and water transport locations, you may need to complete additional training to obtain your Maritime Security Identification Badge. Check with your supervisor if you need to obtain this. When you arrive at the gate, make sure the vehicle beacon light is on, the buggy whip is up, and the vehicle is in park for a security guard to safety approach so passengers can swipe, or card in. All vehicles, and visitors must have the appropriate site approvals and passes while on site. When removing materials or equipment from site, an approved material pass will be required when you arrive at the security gate, so prepare ahead. During our work activities, it is possible that an incident or near miss could occur. If an incident or near miss occurs, stop the work and get the right help needed to prevent things from becoming worse. Freeze the scene. And report the incident to supervision and AHSSE team member. This is very important, as there are incident reporting protocols which must be strictly followed on the LNG Canada project. Failure to report in a timely manner can create unnecessary problems, paperwork, and outcomes. The sooner an incident is reported, regardless of how minor it may seem, the better. A small cut to a finger left untreated could turn into a severe infection. A leaking hose, into a major spill. An odd smell, becomes a fire. Be aware that post-incident, or reasonable cause drug and alcohol testing could be requested, and incidents will be investigated to learn what happened, why it happened, and how to prevent it from occurring again. Let's review some important safety and security information regarding light vehicle operations in the JFJV prime contractor areas, and LNG Canada project work areas. All vehicle operators must possess a valid state or provincial driver's license that is in good standing to operate any vehicle in JFJV or LNG Canada work areas. All vehicles and mobile equipment operated on site require a rotating amber light. Light vehicles must be equipped with a buggy whip and flag. Remember to turn off your amber light and turn down the flag when you leave the project site. The vehicle priority on site is bus traffic, heavy equipment, and then light vehicles. Be patient at security gates and high traffic areas. Especially at shift change. You can never pass a bus with four-way flashes on, from any direction or reason. There are 3 specific vehicle operating rules that must be followed on site. Failing to do so could be considered a life-saving rule violation. First, all vehicle operators must obey the project site speed limit of 30 km per hour, unless otherwise posted. Operators must never use a cellular phone, any of your smartphone functions, or applications while driving. And the use of seat belts is mandatory in all vehicles, equipment and buses by all operators, and passengers. Now let's briefly discuss a few easy forgotten requirements when parking a vehicle or backing up on the work site. First, back-in parking is required in all parking lots. When there are 2 or more persons in a vehicle, the passenger may be required to act as a spotter. This will help prevent backing up incidents which normally cause many of the property damage incidents on the work site. A spotter must be used in all construction areas. Except designated parking lots. If the operator's clear line of sight or vision through the rear view mirror is fully or partially blocked, a spotter must be used. To ensure both the operator and spotter are kept safe, there are some easy safe work practices to follow. If you are the spotter, make sure you position yourself so the operator can clearly see you. If the operator cannot see, or loses sight of the spotter, the operator must stop the vehicle. If the spotter is moving, the vehicle must stop. If the vehicle is moving, the spotter should stop unless they are in a risky position. The spotter should always take a few moments to plan their escape route should things go wrong. While directing the operator to back up, the spotter must give clearly understood hand signals. If not, it could result in injuries or damages. Take your time and do it right. Wonderful. That concludes the JFJV prime contractor portion of the induction. Now, take a few moments to stand up and stretch out those muscles and bones. There is more video to watch. If you need to take more than a quick break, pause this video, and come back when you are ready to continue. Once you're done, we will begin our Boskalis induction. Welcome back. We will now begin the Boskalis part of the site induction. Remember, we need to complete this video and 4 others before we are done. It is a lot of information to take in. But you will do fine. Just remember, learning this way is at your pace. If you miss something, take the time to rewind this video and watch it again. Get comfortable. And here we go again. With its roots in the Netherlands. Royal Boskalis Westminster NV, or better known as Boskalis, is a leading global service provider with over 100 years of experience in hydraulic engineering, coastal protection, dredging, maritime infrastructure, maritime services, and land reclamation. Our corporate head office is maybe in the Netherlands, but we have an extensive network of branches around the world. We operate in 90 countries, and across 6 continents, with a versatile fleet of more than 900 vessels and pieces of floating equipment. Traditionally, dredging has been the core of our activities. Our traditional services include the construction and maintenance of ports and waterways, land reclamation, coastal defense, and riverbank protection. Today, we also offer a wide variety of maritime services and contracting to the offshore energy sector. These services include specialty projects and development, construction, transportation, on- and offshore installations, inspection services, repair and maintenance, decommissioning of oil and LNG import and export facilities, offshore platforms, pipelines, cable installations, and offshore wind farms.
When you focus so strongly, year after year, for decades, on your true passion, with your colleagues around the world who are just as committed and who work on the same goal with so much dedication, a sense of connection is inevitable. An unspoken understanding of what others need to attain their goals and to do what is expected of them anywhere in the world, in an office, at a remote location, or out at sea. A shared bond, even at such enormous distances. For over 100 years, accumulated knowledge, skill, experience, but above all, a bundling of energy. Better ideas, new perspectives, ambitious, innovative concepts beyond our imagination. From the Zuiderzee Works, the Delta Works, and construction of a storm surge barrier, to the expansion of the Suez Canal and the transport and installation of the world's largest offshore platforms. Every project adds to our wealth of experience. Knowledge is passed on. With every experience, we move forward, pushing back boundaries. We have a unique combination of people, equipment, and activities. For over a century, we have been constructing ports and waterways, and maintaining them, reclaiming land, and executing innovative projects in coastal and riverbank protection. As a specialist in offshore, we support the activities of the international energy sector. With Dockwise, we provide unique services in transporting enormous structures. Through Smit and our joint venture partners, we provide towage services in more than 90 major ports in 38 countries. We help vessels in distress and salvage them. We work for clients in over 75 countries across 6 continents, with 1,000 vessels and floating equipment, with more than 8,200 colleagues, with their combined expertise, ingenious thinking power, and belief in shared goals. And we learn every day how we can work closely with our clients to add value in increasingly complex conditions, How we can improve safety and the quality of life in delta regions throughout the world. How we can work in vulnerable areas and even build with nature. And how we can make an even greater contribution to prosperity and well-being. We seek the boundaries of what is possible, explore the limits, and push further. Always consciously mindful of socio-environmental interests, and with the safety of our people and equipment as a #1 priority. Facing the future and breaking new ground for our clients, for ourselves, for the next generation. Boskalis, creating new horizons.
At Boskalis, we know our people are the most valuable assets. Without you, we would not achieve our goals. It is therefore our health and safety policy to provide a safe, secure, and healthy working environment for all our employees, including our subcontractors and others engaged in our work activities. Our policy incorporates appropriate concern for the protection of the environment we work and live in. At Boskalis, we believe that all injuries and incidents are preventable. Our vision is to have a workplace free of occupational injuries and illnesses, equipment and property damages, and environmental releases or spills. When you arrive at the project site, take the time to read this policy. It is posted in a lot of places. This is our project leadership organization for the LNG Canada dredging and marine scope we are responsible for. During your time on the project, you will most likely meet each member of the leadership team. You will be assigned to a supervisor when you arrive on site. He or she will provide you information on where you are working, your duties and responsibilities, and be there to guide you through daily life on the project. There are a lot of fantastic people who work with Boskalis. Take the time to get to know your team. You will hear it often on the project. Our vision is to be the safest project on Earth. Our ambition is to believe and achieve. Starting strong, and staying strong, will provide the elements that support the journey to become the safest project on Earth. Our commitment spans across all stages of the project, and will involve everyone to be successful. We shall actively care, and treat people with dignity and respect. It's all about the people. Leadership, building culture. Harnessing our collective knowledge, building on our success, and learnings. Working as a team. This is achievable. The Kitimat Valley is part of the most populous urban district in northwest British Columbia, which includes Terrace to the north, along the Skeena River Valley. The District of Kitimat Development Services situates the Port of Kitimat as an integral part of the Northwest Corridor, connecting North America to the Pacific Ocean, and the Pacific Rim. It is home to many indigenous people who live, work and utilize the land and waters as a way of life. It is our responsibility to be respectful of the culture, lifestyle, and traditions in this region. Behaving in a respectful manner at all times in the community and the environment is a site requirement. So where are we working? Our work is both on shore, on the LNG Canada project work site, and near shore, working on vessels and barges in the Kitimat Harbour. Our scope of work does have unique logistical, safety, and environment requirements. Following the plan, and the rules, is essential. Our near-shore dredging work is situated at Terminal B adjacent to Rio Tinto, or RTA. The environment permit, which allows us to perform our activities between LNGC and RTA, runs for a specific time period. The dredging season begins September 1, and goes continuously through until February 15. That is a short period of time to complete a lot of work. So why are we here? Boskalis has been contracted by LNG Canada to provide the dredging and marine services needed to complete the initial scope at the terminal to support the construction of the main facility. This current scope is primarily focused on environment remediation. The dredging includes the removal, and remediation of contaminated, and non-contaminated sediments, at the site of the future LNGC terminal and, to provide the required physical space and marine access in support of the onshore construction of LNG Canada. These dredging activities are expected to continue into 2020. The Kitimat port is an industrial area, where contaminants from effluent and surface runoff has accumulated over time in the sediment of the port basin and adjacent areas. As a result, part of the sediment that needs to be dredged is contaminated and has to be managed as such. You will hear the following soil classifications apply to this project. Hazardous wastes. IL+ material, or exceeding industrial landfill tolerances. IL- material, which is suitable for industrial landfill, and DAS material, or disposal at sea, which is suitable for placement either on land or at an approved disposal at sea location. Our Rio Tinto Alcan scope of work includes water quality and marine mammal monitoring, removal of debris and creosote piles, dredging the terminal sea pocket, dredging a berth trench, dredging a barge and tug pen berth, transport, placement, and management of IL- and IL+ material at the onshore dredge disposal sites, transport, placement and management of materials deemed acceptable for disposal at sea. Our LNG Canada scope of work includes water quality and marine mammal monitoring, dredging a stab wedge in front of the sheet piles for the LNGC facility, dredging to facilitate LNG berth 1, transport, placement and management of IL- materials onshore into the dredge disposal site, transport onshore and stabilization of IL+ material which will be transported by barge offsite, transport, placement and management of dredged material acceptable for disposal at sea. For the soils deemed hazardous, and IL+ dredge 8 contaminated soils, a risk assessment was completed for the dredging operations, placement and storage of these materials in the Terminal B warehouse by a third party. During this assessment process, an exposure control program, along with safe written work procedures, were developed to provide management processes and procedures to complete work in a safe and healthy manner. All persons that work in dredging operations will receive the proper information to safely work with and around polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons or PAH contaminated soils in a separate training package. For those whom will have direct contact with the contaminated soil, you will be required to have additional hazard awareness training, and follow specific procedures for handling hazardous and IL+ material. This training will include topics such as, but are not limited to, avoiding harmful exposure to polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, recognizing and reporting potential exposure events, and applicable work-safe BC regulations. The potential occupational exposure to PAH during our operations is anticipated to be minimal, or a low risk after establishing, and following appropriate controls. When handling hazardous wastes, there are specific procedures which must be followed. LNGC hazardous wastes and IL+ materials will be mixed, with additional products, to stabilize the material for transport. Specific awareness training and the procedures for handling hazardous and IL+ soils and materials must be reviewed with workers involved in the process. Hazardous and IL+ materials must achieve acceptable transportation moisture limits, when stabilizing material before transporting off-site. Hazardous waste and IL+ materials will be stored inside the Terminal B warehouse until they have been deemed suitably stable and ready for shipment. To protect the environment and prevent contaminated materials from re-entering the marine environment, containment berms have been installed around the Terminal B footprint and Terminal B warehouse to prevent hazardous and IL+ materials from leaching back into the Kitimat harbor. Vehicles, equipment, and people must take precautionary measures to prevent tracking of stabilized, or non-stabilized material outside of the containment area. Management of storm water, and waste water from the dredged materials will be collected, and treated prior to releasing back to the environment, in accordance with the approved environmental permit. Water management is a critical part of our work activities onshore. We must prevent sandy, silty, or potentially contaminated water from entering into any watercourse or drain during our operations. To do so, some of the mitigation methods that must be in place include Asphalt curbing surrounding the site to contain water. All drains shall be closed or securely covered. Pumps will be installed to assist during high water levels, such as heavy rain falls. All water must be treated in the water treatment plant, from the moment any dredge sediment is unloaded. All free water ponds need to be pumped to the area on the west side of the bunkers. This area is connected to the water treatment plant. There must not be any cross-contamination between RT-contaminated materials and LNGC contaminated materials. Environmental monitoring personnel will provide a report after RT transfers have ended and Terminal B is deemed clean. The final design for stabilization is still under review. The final design will conform to the total moisture limit required for transportation by barge to an approved landfill location. Now, let us review some of the more exciting information in this video. The equipment we will be using during our dredging operations. First, we have the grab dredge, the Alex 2. The Alex 2 will be used for removal of debris on the seabed, removal of creosote piles and obstructions, dredging IL+ materials between the sheet pile wall and jetty, installation of floating pipeline, relocation of material for disposal at sea. Our backhoe dredger, the Cornelius, will be responsible for dredging IL+ and IL- materials, and dredging disposal at sea overburden material.
The Boskalis backhoe dredgers are stationary dredgers with a hydraulic excavator installed on a pontoon. The backhoe dredgers can dredge a wide range of materials very precisely, and they operate mainly in shallow and enclosed waters. The backhoe dredger is anchored firmly with 3 spuds. The bucket excavates soil in a combined backward and upward movement of the boom, stick and bucket. The largest Boskalis backhoe dredger can dredge to a depth of 32 meters. This backhoe dredger has a bucket with a volume of 40 cubic meters. When the bucket is full, an upward movement of the boom and stick lifts the bucket above the water to start swinging. The filled bucket is positioned above the barge by rotating the excavator on the turntable. The dredged material is discharged into the transport barge. Boskalis has a large fleet of backhoe dredgers operating on projects all over the world.
The trailing suction hopper dredgers, Beachway and Medway. Once confirmatory sampling results show the contaminated material has been removed from dredge pocket, these vessels will dredge the materials that will be disposed of at sea, load, and transport these materials outside the Kitimat harbour, then dispose of the dredged materials at the approved DAS disposal area in the Douglas Channel.
Boskalis has cutter suction dredgers that are either self-propelled vessels or stationary dismountable vessels equipped with a rotating cutter head. These powerful cutter suction dredgers are used in dredging rock, clay, silt and sand. Boskalis deploys cutter suction dredgers in the construction and maintenance of ports, land reclamation and coastal defenses and riverbank protection, and in dredging trenches for pipelines. A cutter suction dredger is positioned on spuds and anchor winches to ensure the vessel is firmly anchored during dredging. By pulling on the side wires, the cutter head is moved sideways, swinging around the main spud. The support spud is lowered into the seabed. The main spud, which is located in the spud carriage, is raised and moved forward a few meters. The main spud is lowered again and dredging continues. The cutter suction dredger moves forward by means of the spud carriage. Cut material together with a large quantity of water is drawn into the suction mouth. This soil and water mixture is then transported by the dredge pump through the large discharge pipeline for further transport to the designated site. The dredged material is pumped into the floating pipelines for transport over large distances to the designated area. The dredged material can also be transported by barge. Boskalis has a large fleet of cutter suction dredgers operating on projects worldwide. The trailing suction hopper dredges of Boskalis are ocean-going vessels that can collect sand and silt from the seabed and transport it over large distances. Boskalis deploys trailing suction hopper dredges for the construction and maintenance of ports and waterways, as well as land reclamation and coastal defense and riverbank protection. Trailing suction hopper dredges are equipped with 1 or 2 suction pipes ending in drag heads. When a vessel reaches the dredging location, it reduces speed and lowers the suction pipes to the seabed. The drag head moves slowly over the bed, collecting the sand like a giant vacuum cleaner. The mixture of sand and water is pumped into the hopper of the dredging vessel. Dredging stops when the maximum hopper capacity is reached. The vessel can discharge its load in various ways, depending on the project specifications. The vessel can discharge its load by rainbowing. Rainbowing is used when the vessel can get close to the discharge location and the previously reclaimed sand body is above or almost above the surface. The sand is sprayed through a nozzle in the bow, rainbowing in an arch through the air. Another discharge method consists of pumping the sand ashore by floating or sunken pipelines. This approach is used, for example, in land reclamation or coastal protection projects. The sand is pumped through floating pipelines into the reclamation area. The sand can also be deposited through doors located in the bottom of the vessel. Accuracy is achieved by maneuvering the vessel precisely above the designated location. Boskalis has a large fleet of state-of-the-art trailing suction hopper dredgers operating on projects all over the world.
The multi-cat vessels, Suzanne and Kim, are specialized support vessels capable of performing towing and pushing operations, dredge support, buoy and anchor handling, deck and liquid cargo transport, and pollution control. We will also add this year a non-self-propelled M-Bud barge. This specialized, and highly modified flat-top barge was specifically built to assist in our scope of work. The M-Bud will perform DOP operations to unload contaminated soil from material barges, pumping contaminated material, from offshore to onshore, through the Dredge 8 pipeline system for placement in the LNGC and RT Dredge 8 disposal sites. We will also have a variety of light support vessels and equipment. This will include, but is not limited to, workboats, survey and crew transfer vessels, non-self-propelled material barges, and tugboats. Great work! You made it through the first video. It was a long one. Take a few minutes and relax while you prepare to start video 2.